So here we are for another round of lettering. I've got a quote from Brave with Merida, Mend the Bond. It's the only one that's not a song lyric. And then, of course, A Whole New World, because we all know that one from Aladdin. So, here we go. I'm going to try a new angle and see how that works, if you could see more of the lettering and a little better. And like with all of them, I'll be telling you about some tips, some things that I'm using, and ways to make you start lettering a little easier. So the first thing is I've got this Papermate Ink Joy gel pen. Again, it is a 0.7 millimeter, which is my preferred size. They do make it in 0.5, but I find that's a little too thin for my taste. And I don't like anything bigger than a 0.7. 0.7 is like the magic size for me. Also, this is a gel pen. I prefer to use gel pens for faux calligraphy because the ballpoint pens have a tendency to leave an indentation, and when you look closely at the paper you can see that, and it bothers me. So with the ink flowing out, like with a calligraphy pen or a gel pen, it's a lot neater. So here we go. And let's see if we can adjust this light. No, that is not helping at all. Okay. I want a little thicker than that. And if you're going to practice and you want to have a pencil as guide, my suggestion is to make sure that you use a black pen, because that will make it easier for you to hide the pencil markings. And as you can see, the calligraphy part is achieved by just going over the downstrokes and thickening them. You can go over them as thick or thin as you want. And this is great for those who may not feel very confident with their ability as a hand letterer, but they really like the look. And this is a legitimate form of lettering. Just because it's called faux calligraphy doesn't make it any less artistic. It is just describing the method. That's all. A few years ago I made some Yuletide cards and I used this, and I didn't color it in. I just made another line next to all of the downstrokes, and it looked great. And I got a lot of compliments for how pretty the cards were. So, a little imagination, a little ingenuity, and you can get a work of art. Now, also, as you see, one of the things I'm doing is I'm forming each letter before I go over it. I generally try, in my style of lettering, to form each letter completely. Some I don't, but for the most part, it's easier for me to just do that. But whatever you do, you don't want to stop in the middle of a letter, because what that'll do is I'll give you weird little bubbles of ink, which are not wholly attractive. And as you can see, I've got some pencil here for guidelines. I have a limited amount of this particular type of paper, so I didn't want to have to redo anything. And it's always something I haven't mentioned in my videos yet. It's always a good idea to test your ink, right, and your paper. See, there's no ghosting, there's no bleed through, even with me coloring it in, because this is a thicker piece of paper. For a thinner piece of paper, like notebook paper, or a very, very thin piece of copy paper, which is usually the most inexpensive printer paper you can find, there might be some ghosting or bleed through. So always check. because if you have to write on the back, or if the back is going to show, you definitely don't want an unattractive surprise that you didn't expect. As you can see, with the O and the R, I did them all together. And that's because if I had stopped here, there would have been a blob of dot anywhere along where I stopped. And because I'm not using a sharp edge at this angle in the R, I also didn't want one there. And as you're lettering, you know, experiment with the thickness of your lines and the angles. There is a style, and I'm for the life of me forgetting what it's called, but basically it describes a style of lettering in which all of the letters are kind of catty-cornered next to each other. So instead of being in a straight line or all facing and slanting the same way, one goes one way, one goes another way. And there's a little bit of that going on here. But I didn't focus on it too much. And I prefer that. I feel like the up and down, back and forth motion gives the lettering the appearance of more dynamism and this kind of joyful movement. So I personally like that myself. And there you go. There's that one done. As you can see, I've got some thicker lines here than up here. And that's just, you know, experimentation. Now we have this one, Mend the Bond. I'm trying to do this in such a way that there's not a shadow. Or less of a shadow. There you go. That's a little better. It's funny that I'm doing this lettering for this one. Brave came on last night on one of the kids' channels. Brave is right up there with Tangled. I really like Brave. Alright, so it looks like this is fussing a little more than if the light's not there, so we'll bring that back. And one of the things I've been trying to remember to mention in the videos is when it comes to lettering of any kind, spacing is super important, whether you're doing faux calligraphy or something else. Much like color, spacing can make or break a piece of your art. If things are spaced in this really funky, this doesn't look like it's on purpose kind of way, you can tell. And it won't look right. And it's not even about it being even, you know, or you measuring out everything so much as it following a natural and understandable or established flow. So if I spaced all these out a lot and then squinched these together, that wouldn't look cohesive. Now, of course, there are always instances where you are trying to do something like that to call attention to certain things or draw attention away from things, and that's perfectly fine if that is what you were trying to do. If it is not, then it looks rather sloppy and amateurish. And as you can see, I always dot my I's and cross my T's and J's and everything at the end. And that means I know exactly how much space I have to cross things. So if I wanted to longer cross over my T, I know that I have this much space to do so. All right, so and because we've already got one D that looks like this, we want to make sure that the other one matches. So it'd look a little weird if I did two different D's. And you can certainly do anything that you want when it comes to your lettering. But again, if you're looking for cohesion, if you're looking for it to look a certain way, it's so much easier if you keep everything even. So there you go, something from Jasmine, something from Merida. I'm going to let these dry. If you are doing ink and you have guidelines with pencil, always give your ink a lot of time to dry, because the last thing you want is to have smears because you didn't let the ink dry all the way. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There will be 3 more videos doing 2 lettering jobs each. And I hope you enjoyed. And of course, if you've had any questions about any of these videos, don't hesitate to put a comment below, and I will be glad to answer any questions or anything like that. All right, bye.